The atmosphere inside Kingsley's elite Manhattan dining hall grew so heavy it was almost tangible. Conversations died mid-sentence, silverware froze in midair, and all eyes turned toward the small space between the tables. 10-year-old Lucas Montgomery stood trembling, his legs locked inside metal braces that rattled as he stretched out his hand toward Diana Johnson, the only black server on staff. The piano had just started playing a soft tune, and the boy, on impulse, had asked her to dance. "Sir, keep your child under control," barked Manager Thornton. His sharp tone cut through the silence like a blade. "This isn't a dance floor, and our employees aren't here to amuse children." Richard Montgomery, founder of Montgomery Investments and one of America's wealthiest men, swallowed hard. It was the first time he dared to bring his son out to dinner since the accident 2 years earlier that left Lucas partially paralyzed, a decision he now regretted deeply. "Lucas, sit down." The command was quiet but firm. Diana didn't move. Her eyes flicked between the manager, the billionaire, and the boy still waiting with his hand raised. After 5 years working in that restaurant, she had learned how to make herself invisible, especially around men like Montgomery. "My shift's over, Mr. Thornton. I'm leaving," she said calmly, untying her apron and setting it on her tray. Then she surprised everyone by smiling at Lucas and taking his hand. "I can't dance while I'm wearing this." Richard shot to his feet. "What do you think you're doing?" She met his stare without flinching. "Accepting an invitation, sir." Before anyone could stop them, Lucas took a shaky step forward. His foot dragged across the polished floor, metal scraping loudly, but Diana didn't rush him or try to guide his movements. Instead, she matched his hesitant rhythm. "She'll lose her job tomorrow," whispered a well-dressed woman at the next table. Richard stood frozen, memories surging. His late wife, Elizabeth, twirling in the living room with Lucas. "It isn't about flawless steps," she had said. "It's about connection." As Diana followed Lucas's awkward lead, something remarkable happened. His expression changed. Fear melted into concentration, shame into pride. For the first time since the accident, Lucas wasn't being corrected or supported. He was the one in control. "Mr. Montgomery," Thornton's voice intruded, "this will never happen again. She'll face consequences." Richard stayed silent. The restaurant staff had paused, customers held their breath. Everyone waited to see what the billionaire would do. A single word from him could ruin her career. But all he heard was Lucas's laughter echoing in his ears. After 3 unsteady steps, Diana gently returned Lucas to his chair. "Thank you for the honor of asking me," she said formally, as if addressing an adult. As she turned to leave, Richard's voice stopped her. "Wait, what's your full name?" "Diana Johnson, sir." He repeated it slowly, as though committing it to memory. Then he pulled a business card from his jacket and extended it. "My office. 10 o'clock tomorrow morning." Gasps rippled through the restaurant. Diana accepted the card, her hand trembling ever so slightly. "Dad," Lucas asked softly after she walked away, "why did you do that?" Richard looked at his son. For the first time in 2 years, he saw not just a child to protect or manage, but a whole person with needs and desires he had ignored. Dinner continued in strained silence, but Diana's last glance lingered in his mind, not fearful, but steady, determined. If this moment has already touched you, subscribe to follow how a single act of dignity can ignite a quiet revolution that changes lives forever. The next morning, Montgomery Tower gleamed in the sunlight, its glass walls shining like mirrors. Diana Johnson, dressed in her best outfit, a navy skirt and discounted white blouse, felt small against the grandeur. People passing by wore clothes that probably cost more than her rent. "Diana Johnson to see Mr. Montgomery," she told the receptionist, who scrutinized her before placing a call. 18th floor. "Miss Winters will meet you." In the elevator, Diana pressed her worn purse against her chest and took a deep breath. It wasn't fear, but a calm resolve born from surviving harder trials. Miss Winters, Richard's assistant, led her down mirrored corridors under the stares of employees. A black woman escorted through executive offices was unusual enough to stir gossip. "He had you dismissed, didn't he?" Winters asked abruptly. "That's how it works. Powerful clients complain, and staff like you get tossed out." "People like me?" Diana asked coolly. "You know what I mean. People who don't know their place." Diana smiled faintly. "And where would that be exactly?" Before Winters could answer, her phone rang. He'll see you now. Richard's office occupied half the floor, overlooking the city as though it belonged to him. He stood at the window, posture rigid. Mr. Montgomery, Diana greeted. Miss Johnson, please sit. The silence that followed was deliberate, meant to unsettle. Diana recognized the tactic immediately. Your background? Richard asked. Pardon. Education. College. Bachelor's in Child Development from NYU. Began a master's in special education, but didn't finish. Surprise flickered across his face. And now you're a waitress? I work 3 jobs. The restaurant, a bookstore on weekends, and tutoring whenever I can. He picked up a folder. I looked into you. I wanted to understand the woman who danced with my son. Inside were photos of a community center. Freedom Steps. You founded it. I co-founded it with my sister, Zoe. A dance program for children with disabilities. It's about to close for lack of funds, he noted. I'm not surprised, you know. But I didn't come here to ask for charity. You invited me. Richard gave a dry, humorless laugh. Fair enough. I want to hire you. As what? Staff in your home. As a therapeutic companion for Lucas, he corrected. His gaze flicked toward a framed photo of Elizabeth with baby Lucas. I've hired the best therapists, neurologists, psychologists. But what you gave him yesterday, he faltered. It was just a dance, Mr. Montgomery. It was the first time I saw him smile since the accident. The admission was raw, almost painful. I don't need a dancer for my son. I need someone who can do what you did. Follow instead of lead. Diana studied him closely. Beneath the polished exterior was a father grasping for hope. I'll pay you 5 times your current salary. She stood. No, Richard looked stunned. He wasn't used to rejection. I don't work for people who see my skin color or class before my skills. And I won't work for someone trying to purchase a solution to emotional wounds. You're rejecting life-changing money. For pride? For dignity, she corrected. And because your son deserves someone who truly cares, not someone bought. She paused at the door. Lucas doesn't need more experts. He needs freedom to guide his own life. You don't know my son. No. But I know what cages people build around those with disabilities. And I refuse to be part of it. She left her card on his desk. Freedom Steps. Classes Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4. The first class is free. Bring him if you wish. As she exited, Winters hissed, You just turned down Richard Montgomery. Are you insane? Maybe. But better crazy than owned. The following Wednesday, Diana's sister Zoe rushed into their modest community center. There's a Bentley parked outside, she whispered, adjusting her hijab. And you won't believe who's in it. Through the window, Diana saw the luxury car. Lucas peered nervously from the back seat, while Richard sat gripping the wheel, clearly at war with himself. He won't come inside, Zoe muttered. Men like him don't enter places like this. Diana smiled knowingly. Never underestimate a determined child. The rear door opened. Lucas climbed out carefully, adjusting his braces. To their shock, Richard followed, dressed down awkwardly in casual clothes that still screamed wealth. I told you he'd come, Diana murmured. What did you do? Zoe demanded. Diana didn't answer, but her eyes gleamed with a private resolve. In her Bronx apartment, beneath her bed, lay notebooks filled with years of research and plans. Richard Montgomery had no idea Diana Johnson wasn't just a waitress. She was on a mission, and his empire of control was about to collide with a truth money couldn't buy. Inside the warehouse-turned-studio, colorful posters proclaimed, Your rhythm, your rules. Children with mobility devices moved freely to upbeat music. It looks chaotic, Richard muttered, uncomfortable. There's structure, Diana explained. Just not the kind you recognize. She turned to Lucas. Want to join? He nodded but glanced at his father. Go on, Richard said stiffly. As Diana guided Lucas into the group, Zoe offered Richard a chair. The first day is hardest, for parents, not kids. This isn't therapy, he objected. I already hired the best. And how's that working for Lucas? Zoe asked gently. The door opened. An older woman entered, walking with an elegant cane. Gray braids framed her dignified face. Dr. Elaine Mercer, Zoe whispered. Retired Harvard neuroscientist. Richard stiffened. You? I turned down your proposals 3 times. She smiled. And I direct the research here. We study how non-directive movement fosters neural rewiring in children with motor challenges. I thought this was a dance club, he muttered. Freedom Steps is a pilot rehabilitation program, Diana explained. We blend adaptive dance with neuroscience. Richard blinked. Why are you waiting tables if you lead research? Because we lack funding, and people like you rejected us, she replied. The realization dawned. You were Dr. Mercer's assistant. Co-author, Mercer corrected. Her theories are groundbreaking. You knew who I was the moment I entered that restaurant, Richard accused. Yes, Diana admitted. And when Lucas stood to dance, I saw an opening. Not to manipulate him, but to let him choose. Reporters suddenly entered, cameras flashing. What's this? Richard bristled. Part 2, Diana said simply. Zoe showed him a headline. Innovative rehabilitation method shows promise. You used my son for publicity, he growled. I used the moment to fight for children like him, Diana countered. She led him into a side room where walls were covered with children's photos and progress notes. One frame was left empty. For what? Richard asked. Our future, a full-scale rehab center. 500 children instead of 50. You orchestrated all this. I seized an opportunity. You ignored us 3 times. I couldn't wait forever. Diana. Zoe interrupted. It's Lucas. They rushed back. In the middle of the studio, Lucas had removed one brace and was balancing on his own. Lucas. Richard started, but Diana stopped him. Wait. Watch. The boy steadied himself, then took a step. Uncertain, trembling, but his own. Cheers erupted. Flashbulbs popped. Richard's eyes filled despite himself. This, Diana whispered, is what Freedom Steps is about. Not perfect steps. First steps. Richard's reputation hung in the balance. The press waited. He could storm out or embrace the moment. A reporter asked, Mr. Montgomery, is it true your foundation rejected this program 3 times? Richard looked at his son, then faced the crowd. You know what's hardest for people like me? He said loudly. Admitting when we're wrong. Gasps. The Montgomery Foundation will fully fund Freedom Steps for the next 5 years, and will build a permanent center based on this method. On one condition, Ms. Johnson has complete independence. No corporate control. Applause exploded. 3 months later, bulldozers cleared land for the new center. Diana oversaw construction, often joined by Lucas. And, to everyone's surprise, Richard himself. I never imagined you'd attend planning meetings, Diana said one day. I never imagined I'd be studying neuroplasticity at 50, Richard replied with a tired smile, flipping through marked-up research. Is this penance? Or do you really care? She asked. Lucas asked last week to have his second brace removed. I know. He told me. His last therapist said it would take years. And you told me she was wrong, Richard recalled. She was. Richard hesitated. Why won't you accept my apology? Because you never gave one. Funding isn't the same as saying sorry. Fair point. He nodded. 6 months later, at the grand opening, the center buzzed with children moving freely. In the main hall, Lucas, now wearing just one lightweight brace, led a small routine with 3 peers. His movements weren't perfect, but they radiated confidence. Richard stayed back, observing. He doesn't need you to hold him anymore, Diana remarked quietly. No, Richard admitted. But he still needs me nearby. There's a difference. He turned to her. Thank you. For what? For teaching me to follow. A reporter asked, Mr. Montgomery, how does it feel to see your son's progress? Richard's eyes shone. Proud. Not of what he's overcome, but of what he's built for others. And the biggest lesson? That true leaders aren't those who force others down a chosen road, Richard answered, looking into the camera. They're the ones brave enough to follow when someone shows a better path. 1 year later, Freedom Steps had expanded to 3 more cities. Diana received national recognition for innovation in pediatric rehabilitation. Lucas, using only a light cane on rough days, attended a mainstream school and became the program's youth ambassador. And Richard Montgomery had learned the most valuable lesson of his life. True strength isn't control, but knowing when to step back and let someone else lead. In a world where privilege so often silences the powerless, the story of Richard, Diana, and Lucas proves transformation happens when boundaries are crossed, when a billionaire learns from a waitress, and a father learns to follow his child's steps. If this story moved you, subscribe to our channel. Because the deepest revolutions don't come from wealth or speeches. They start with a genuine first step, and the wisdom of someone willing to follow. White heavy checkmark. That's the entire story fully rewritten in different words, no part missing, same length and flow.